Hi, in this video I'm going to demonstrate how to fix the infamous battery cover or battery door on the Zoom F1. Right, now there's the problem. I'm showing how the plastic flange or plastic lip here that normally seats inside here is broken, not very strong. Right, I'm going to open it. There are two screws, one there and one there. I'm using a jeweler's type screwdriver, star. Just keep in mind there is a spring that might pop out. So when I open it, I'm going to cover it with my hand just to block any spring that may pop out. Alright, there's the spring. There's all the pieces. Right, to do this repair, I'm going to use a powder bond. Here's another example. So basically it's a glue with some filings or some powder that you use to build up the area to make it stronger. Now I'm going to be using the Pratley type, and I'm going to use the white one for the reason that I want to see where I'm building it up. Obviously the black is better because it hides the repair, but for the video I'm going to use the white so it becomes obvious where the bond was. Right, so there's the problem. So I'm going to be gluing it at the back, which is this side over here, but I'm going to be building it up at the back with some of the filings. Now in your case this piece may have already broken off, so you'll need to stick it back on. Now the adhesive likes a rough surface, so all I'm going to do is I'm gently going to file a little bit of the plastic where I'm going to be bonding it. Yes, this piece may break off while I file it, but the filing is very important. I'm just making the surface a bit rough. Right, now I'm going to take a little bit of super glue and just put that piece onto that piece, and then I'm going to let it dry. Now I don't put the super glue on the plastic. I actually put the super glue on the screwdriver and then I dip it into the plastic. I just need a small amount of glue. So for example, I might just put one drop there, and all I'm going to do is take the screwdriver and now coat the surface here. If you do want to dip it, it's fine. But if you dip it, I don't like to get super glue anywhere else. I only want it on that broken part where it's going to be glued onto the other side. Right, it's quite finicky. I've managed to glue it on. That'll just make it stable for when I build it up. Right, I've just made sure it's straight, and I'm going to leave that to dry for about 15 to 20 minutes. Right, so it is actually glued, but I definitely wouldn't leave it like this. This wouldn't be strong enough. It's brittle and it would break quite soon again. What I do is I'm just going to put some of the filings on the top over here. So I'm just putting some filings here now. And now what I'm going to do is put one drop on the top here. There we go, and that's actually a lot. I will have to grind that down quite a bit. And now I'm going to put some more filings on there. Right. If you have glued your fingers together, I prefer not to just pull them open. Sometimes tears the skin. I pull them apart a little bit and gently cut the glue away. In this way, I still maintain the integrity of my skin. See, there we go, no damage. So if I show you from this side, you can see that there's still quite a gap there, and I want it to be built up so that it fits into this little gap where my screwdriver is. So I'm just going to put a little bit more of the filings and the glue. Now for this repair, I actually recommend using the Q-bond as the filings, because the Q-bond filings, the particulates are actually smaller, so they would work better in this type of installation because it is much smaller. Right, so here's the prototype. It's all rough. It looks a bit pretty much disgusting, and all I'm going to do is now clean it up. I'm going to file it on the sides just to get it back to its original width. Right, so if you have a look there, I filed it. There's the profile and the other side. Right, and then there's the other side. If you've spilled glue inside there or there, you can just use a blade and just cut out the glue or scratch it off with a screwdriver. We want these surfaces to be pretty untouched and open so that they can move freely. And I just need to file here as well. Right, so this is the piece now. Now what's going to happen is it needs to go into this cover. Now it's too fat. Now what would normally happen is there's this black piece of plastic that goes underneath and these two would sandwich on top. So in this repair, the only way that I got it working is to actually cut away the plastic here. So I'm cutting this away all the way to there so that this plastic here is now removed, and what takes that place is this double thickness of this plastic. So this would normally slide like that, but now it's too fat. So what I need to do is cut away this plastic here. Now, if you don't want to use an angle grinder, you can just use side cutters to cut away the plastic. Right, so that's what it looks like now. And we can see that this can move quite nicely where that plastic was. Just needs to be cut a little bit more because the mouth is still a bit exposed. I'm going to file this away. I am going to use an angle grinder, so I'm just going to take about, let's say, about 2 millimeters away. Right, now this piece can slide completely in and out. There's in and out. And just having a look at that side, there's no glue in the way, so that's working very nicely. All I need to do now is put the back cover on, but I just need to make sure that this is not too fat, which at the moment it is. It's still too fat. Because if I put the cover on, it's now jamming there. It's jammed, and also this has to be very snug. It has to be flush, otherwise this door won't close. So now what I need to do is just file this down a bit more. I'm going to use an angle grinder. Right, a file also very useful. You can just do this with a file. It's better, but still a bit too raised. And this is supposed to be just the thickness of this piece over here. Now the purpose of this is that the weak spot is on the neck there. So if I file this part away where I built it up, then I'm going to weaken it. The weakness is there, and now it's got double layer. It's got the glue layer, plus I've glued where the tear was. So I can't file it too much over here, otherwise it will just break. Notice that I've cut this part out. You see there was a bit of steel that was still there. I've cut that off because I need the glue to be a bit thicker here, because that's the weak spot. Moving very nicely. All I'd have to do now is just smooth it out. It's a little bit rough. Right, this is what my finished slider looks like. Some things I want to bring your attention to are, firstly, the platform. Notice that it doesn't taper off. If it tapers off, it's going to wiggle inside. It's also okay if it gets a little bit thicker towards the back. That's also fine. Another thing is, when you're filing it, notice that I've left a little bit there. The only way it works nicely is if you grind down a little bit off this steel plate. What I'm going to do is quickly sand it with this 800 grit sandpaper. It's very fine. It's really just smoothing it out, making sure there's no rough ends, just so that it moves nice and smoothly. Now when reinstalling this, I've just put a little bit of putty there. We call it press stick. It's just stuff you hang posters with, just a tiny bit there. And also I'm going to put some on the back there. And the reason being is that I don't want this to move around when I'm installing it. And also notice that I've left the space there. So I'm using this as a platform so that it is raised. So when I put the slider in, it can sit flush without bumping up. That's why I've put it on the file, acting as a raised surface. Now what we need to do is fasten that into there. Now one can use a tiny bit of super glue. All I'm doing is I'm taking a tiny bit on my screwdriver, just a tiny bit, and I'm putting it at the back here. and then I'm putting that onto that. So I'm actually gluing it down. The reason why I'm doing this is this thing keeps bouncing up. But this is not a mandatory step, because if you get glue on this thing here, it's not going to slide, and super glue spreads very easily. And that's why I put it on the screwdriver and dabbed it on there. Notice how now that strap stays in place. Now I have done this quite a few times. Just notice my spring is angled there. It is naturally angled. I just extended that angle a little bit. You could just leave it the way it was. Now I'm seating it into the sticky putty first. The reason why it's in the sticky putty is that if I'm too aggressive, I won't lose the spring forever. Right, so it's in the sticky putty, and now I just need to lift that and put it there. Actually just putting a tiny bit more of the sticky putty here. The sticky putty will compress, so I'm not worried about it adding thickness. Now I'm just going to shift this there to push on the slider. Right, now this is when the sticky putty comes in handy, because if I release this, the spring will be gone forever. That sticky putty will help me. Now I just need to get the black piece of plastic. There it is, and press it over, holding all of these. Fudge. Okay, so that's what happens there. Easier to align that side, and then using a flat screwdriver, I just push that into the sticky putty there. And whatever you do, don't move your finger. And now I'm going to slide this in, and then I'm going to slide this on as well. Just keep the pressure on all the time. Finally. Right, so now I can put the screws. Right, now I can release it, pulling the putty away. Right, just make sure these screws are fairly tight. Don't over tighten it, but you'll notice that this has to be completely flush. There's a definitive end point when tightening these screws. Yeah, that's great. Yes, perfect. Right, now I'm going to test it. Oh, check at that. Right, so, oh yes. Oh wow. Oh wow. Oh wow. So now it's very important to just do a quick test. If I switch it on, and I'm going to start a recording, and then I'm going to make sure that that door doesn't wobble. So I'm going to just start a recording, and now and that's very important. So that door is not wobbling at all. And I'm actually tapping on the slider. Right, you can see the recording is still ongoing. Now let's open that. Oh, wonderful. The only problem I'm seeing is if I try and close it when it's like that, you can see there's a bit of a gap that's formed there. I think that would have been the case even if I hadn't done the repair. So I just know you've got to make it snug there. Overall, it seems to be fine. Quite strong, quite springy. Now just some tips: if you're finding that it's too tight, then just file that down a bit more, the slider. And I've done this a few times. The one time it was too tight, and then I noticed it wouldn't close here properly, and that's why I say the steel plate has to be completely flush. If the steel plate is a bit higher than the plastic here, then you've made it too fat. Then another thing is, if you file that too much or taper it off, then this thing is going to wobble inside here. Notice that this thing is not wobbling inside here, which is great. What I had done is I had filed it too much, and then it was wobbling. So then I went back and rebuilt this up, made it the same thickness from start to end, even a little bit fatter towards the back. Right, and I'm just going to try the one hand test. Yes, open and close, because that's how it was. Could open it and close. Yeah, this I would say is fine. I have got rechargeable batteries in here, so they tend to be slightly bigger. Perfect. Alright, so thanks for watching and cheers.